everybody. How are you? I always like to start by checking to see if you can hear me and checking to see if our technology is working. So I'm going to type something in the chat and I hope that it works. Let's see. Okay, so I typed in hi. If you can see that, let me know and then I can get started. It's always a crazy. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Melody. Thank you. All right, so I am SB Linton from autismclassroom.com. I'm going to be talking to you today about. Let me make sure I got my right slide. I don't know why it started at 3. I'm going to talk to you about 12 things to know before establishing your autism classroom. And first, I always like to see where people are coming from. So I'm going to add a little poll there to see how many years you've worked in special education, just to give me an idea of who I'm working with. Or, okay, good. I can see that that's working too. And the other thing I like to do is find out before we start, what are some of the challenges that you have in your classroom? What things tend to be the greatest challenge for you in the classroom? And we'll see if some of those things align with some of the things that we're talking about. Okay. Yeah, I can see. I see. And data collection and working with adults tends to be some of the biggest ones. All right, let's get started. Again, we're talking about 12 things to know before establishing an autism classroom. The idea behind this is a handout that we gave away. It's a free ebook. So I'm going to try to put that and share that with you. It's a free ebook that I give away. And I like to tell people that these are the 12 things that everybody expects you to know, but everybody forgot to tell you. So if you're working in an autism classroom or if you're new to that field, people will expect that you know some of these things. And we're going to talk about some of them. We got a couple new people. You can guys say hi in the chat if you want to, so that we can know you're here. And again, we're going to talk about things that people expect you to know. A lot of times, these 12 tips might help you just get some background if you're just getting started in an autism classroom. If you just joined us, you can check the handout and download it. And so for me, again, I'm SB Linton. I'm the owner of autismclassroom.com and the author of How to Set Up a Classroom for Students with Autism, and also the founder of the Step-by-Step Autism Classroom Design course. This is going to be just a 12-part overview of what you need to know before you start establishing your autism classroom. And really, I try to make it so that you can build a solid foundation for yourself so that when you're teaching, you have some background knowledge in addition to all the new stuff you have to do. So, number one, we're going to go through 12 things. You need to know about autism, of course, if you're working in an autism classroom. And we know that autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disorder. And the numbers change from year to year, whether it's 1 in 44, 1 in 66. It used to be 1 in 10,000 when I first started. And so those numbers have shrunk. And they call it a spectrum disorder because there is a wide variety of traits and things that you might see in students with autism. But there are some commonalities. And the first is delayed language or challenges with communication, expression with behavior rather than words. You probably see that with your students. Difficulty regulating emotion and physiological regulation, and then struggling with social interactions. Has anybody seen that in their students so far? Okay, yeah. And so as a teacher, of course, if you want to be successful and teach your students you've got to do your homework, right? You've got to understand a little bit more about autism because it's going to help you to work better with your students. And so you can find out more at autismclassroom.com. We have an about section, about autism section, and you can go to autismsociety.org or autism.org to learn some more. Number two thing you want to know is what LRE will you be teaching in? Now, typically, let me come back on because we got a couple new people. I'm going to come on just for a second. So, hey, everybody that's new. Typically, I teach this in the summertime or in the springtime when people are just getting their assignments, but you're already in the middle of the school year. So, you probably do know what LRE you're going to be teaching in. So you kind of have to bear with that. But if this was new, if you were moving to a new school or teaching in a new classroom or a new system, you would want to know, okay, what is the LRE? What environment are my students going to be in if they're not going to be in general education? And for a lot of us, there are different environments from most restrictive to least restrictive. So some students are in a residential facility, some students are home, some students are in a special school, and then you get to the special education classroom, which most of us might be teaching in. And then sometimes you have a regular ed classroom where students go to a special ed classroom for part of the day, or they have a teacher that comes in, a special educator that comes in and works with them. And the LRE is not really just about the location, it's really a philosophy of inclusivity that should guide your every decision as a teacher. And so this takes time and creative juices to really problem solve, because it also takes heavy lifting at times, because you're going to have to really fight for your students to be included in some schools. I don't know if anyone can understand that and what I mean by that. And so, for example, if the rest of the class is doing a hands-on, oh yeah, Lauren says she agrees, yeah. If the rest of the class is doing a hands-on experiment for science, how can you get your student to also participate in something like that? And those are the kind of things to think about. So part of your job will be to help make these activities accessible and in the most appropriate way possible. And again, nobody tells you that. They just assume that you know that when you step into the role as a special educator. The third thing you have to know is what you're legally required to do. So it's important for us as special educators to understand that the IEP is a legal document and it must be upheld. So regardless of your teaching title, if you're a special educator, if you are a reading teacher, if you're a general ed teacher, if you're a paraprofessional, we are responsible for educating the student with an IEP. And we're going to have to read that IEP and make sure we're fulfilling the requirements. And in some cases, it's hard to get access to it when you're new. Sometimes you don't even have access to the computer program that has the IEP, or sometimes they're locked up somewhere and nobody's giving you access to that room where they are. But you're going to have to find a way to find this, because in the end, when you have the meeting, the parents are going to be asking you, what did you do to fulfill the requirements? Okay, I see a question. Are you responsible for only teaching to the IEP as a special education teacher? I've been told mixed things. I would say, Lauren, that each school system may tell you different and have whatever system that they have. But what I've always seen is you're teaching different things throughout the day, like math, reading, science, social studies, and you're also teaching the student what's in that IEP. And because I work a lot more with self-contained classrooms, those classrooms are able to specifically have some time to address the IEP skills, and yeah, and then also work on some of the others. Okay, great. And then we know our students with IEPs have targeted goals, like we just said, like reading, math, social studies, life skills, and sometimes behavior. And we have to really explicitly set up time and instruction for that. I like to do it daily. When I'm working with teams, I do consulting and I ask them to work on skills daily, even if it's a short period of time. So even if they're working on one skill for like 3 minutes, they're getting through that skill with that student, and they're giving that student exposure to that skill often. And then, of course, the student has to be monitored for progress. And so in the IEP, there's also going to be what's called supplementary aids and services. And these are things like communication supports or personal schedules, visual supports. These things are written into the IEP in a separate part of the document, but the supplementary supports are a key reason that I added modules about visual supports and schedules in the step-by-step autism classroom design course, because they are in a lot of students' supplementary aids and supports, and teachers don't have a lot of time to make them. So in that course, I try my best to give teachers things that's already made. They just print it out and go. And so again, that course helps to build a foundation. And also, if you have them as part of your classroom program, when you get a student that has it on their IEP, it's nothing to you because you already have it. You don't have to go and make something new. It becomes a normal part of what you deliver as a teacher. And then for the IEP, you also have to schedule and attend IEP meetings. Again, this was for someone if they're brand new and they're moving to special ed from general ed or from a different career. And they may not know this, but you have to attend these meetings, and this is a team of specialists, including the child's family, and they work together to try to make sure the student is supported. And if not, they have to adjust the plan. And it's important that you know your role in this process and really try to execute your part of the plan efficiently and consistently. This is where all your time gets taken up. This is where you think, oh, I have to write this IEP. It reasonably should take you a short amount of time, but it takes a long amount of time. And so what you probably want to do is ask before you even have a meeting, as soon as you set foot in that school, say, where is the training program that the school uses to create IEPs? The other thing to do is once you get an idea of what your students can do, you might either jot down your own notes or maybe put in a Google Doc some things that the student is doing, some things they need help with, because then you will already have a starting point and you don't have to start from scratch when you sit down to write the IEP. And you can use a checklist if you want. Some people, school systems have a checklist to tell you all the different parts that you need. And you can also use some templates. And so for me, I think you have to learn the technology because the technology is separate from writing the IEP, right? There's stuff you have to put in the IEP based on what the student can do, what they can't do, their scores, and different things like that. And then there's the part of learning the technology. And so people don't tell you this, but you want to give yourself some extra time to learn that technology. If you have an IEP coming up next month, you want to learn that technology soon. And so if you can, build this time into your schedule when you're planning your classroom setup, meaning if you know you have student IEPs in November and January, make sure that instead of feeling so rushed and feeling like you're leaving people hanging at the last minute when you have to go to the meeting, schedule it in so you'll already know, okay, on these days I have meetings, so here's the activity that's going to happen and here's who's going to run that activity. And then number 4, things we want to think about before establishing our classroom. What is in that IEP? It really is unique to the student, but it really takes a team to try to understand what to do for that student. So some important sections that are found in most IEPs, usually they want to know, what is the current ability of the student? What are their academics like? What is their behavior like? What are their social skills like? And additionally, they typically want to know what are their self-help skills like. The IEP also addresses the student's strengths and weaknesses and any specific needs related to their disability. When you think about it and look through it, no matter what school system you're in, typically they'll have personalized goals and objectives, and you'll have like a long-term goal where you're going for the year, and then some short-term objectives where you're going to kind of work on each month or well, each semester up until that year. And the specific services or accommodations that the student will receive are in that IEP and listed there. And sometimes the school team will come up with them based on what the kid needs, but there'll be times where the parent will say, here's the things that I think my child needs. And because they're a member of the team, you guys work together. I already talked about the supplementary aids and services, and I really like talking about those because people forget them. They work on the goals and objectives, and then they get to the meeting, and the parent has agreed to these supplementary aids and services, and they want to know, are you using them? And so you got to make it your priority to look at those supplementary aids and services and see if you can fit them into what's going on. And again, those look like assistive technology, look like adaptive books sometimes, visual supports, sometimes toileting supports or having to use the bathroom on a timer might be in the supplementary aids. It might say wait time or child needs help with transitions. There are a lot of things that people put in there that are very important. Now, if you are new and you don't have access to the student's IEP or their supplementary aids, it's really important to reach out to the school administrator, or if you're in a school where their former teacher goes there, you can ask them for a little bit of assistance because this information is very needed for you to understand your student. And so let me come back on real quick in case we have any new folks. So another thing to think about is there's something called prior written notice. And I didn't even understand what this was for a long time. And I've been working in special ed for a long time because it didn't make sense. It's called prior written notice, and they would send it out after the meeting. So I was like, why are they sending it out after the meeting? But the point of it is you are giving the parent written notice to what you guys talked about in the meeting. And so you want to make sure that you send out the prior written notice so that the parents start to understand or do understand and agree with you're on the same page. Because sometimes people send it out and it's not 100% correct because the person taking the notes is usually from the school. And depending on how good of a note taker they are, they might have missed something or they might have added something and parent didn't mean it that way. And so you really don't finalize the IEP document until the prior written notice is given out and approved by the parent. All right, let's see. I'm hitting the button. All right, number 5, you're going to need to know what skills you will be teaching. Of course, we're going to work with a wide range of students, so we have to understand their specific needs. For example, if you're in elementary school, you might focus on foundational things like math and reading and writing. Some of the goals you might see when you're working with younger kids who are in self-contained classrooms might be identifying, matching, following two-step directions. You may see some stuff about alphabet letters or identify or fine motor skills and how to use a schedule, some things like that. But for high school, the focus might shift to more complex things like critical thinking for the students, problem solving, and life skills. I do see a lot of cleaning and laundry, cooking, life skills like that to kind of teach the students so that they can have the skills that they need to get along in their community. And so for a lot of our kids with autism, it's really essential to understand their individual cognitive and intellectual abilities so that you're choosing appropriate materials for them. Oh, okay. Let's see. There's a question from Lauren. Have you used the ABLE program or the ARIS model? What are your thoughts on ARIS? So I have been in schools where they use ables, and also um, where they use Eris. Eris is the is that the Stages company? Yeah. So a funny thing, when I order materials for school systems, I order from Stages most of the time. But I don't. I've never ordered the full Eris model. I order. You know how it comes with all of their materials. So I order their materials and then I just use it my way. Okay, that's the program you're struggling with. Well, I'm hoping that they have. I don't know if you know, but they probably have people that will do a webinar with you and give you some direction. Is that an option for you, Lauren? Oh, so maybe have to. So, who's saying no? Is it the school system? Okay. Oh, because you might have to pay for it. Okay. That's the yeah, that's the difference. I would check their website and see whatever they have for free because they've got to have some type of instruction, I hope, for free and see if that or online and see if like on YouTube somebody explains a little bit of it to help a little bit more. Okay. And we can chat a little bit after too. For high school, you and also any IEP, you're going to work with the psychologist, the therapist, speech language pathologist to figure out the best teaching approach. And of course, the goal is to keep the student engaged in the activity and move them towards their goals. And I know that our kids with autism really require instruction and social skills and communication skills. I like to focus a lot on play skills too for the younger kids. And we know that autism, of course, can also have restricted or repetitive patterns of behavior. But a lot of times people forget to focus on that. And so, and this might come in line with what you're asking about, Lauren. Um, so, what I end up doing is I had developed some targets for language skills, play, fine motor, and social skills to be used in centers. So, like 2 or 3 students at a time, and there's just quick, easy activities. Um, some of um, the Stages materials can help with this. I mean, it's not meant to go directly with Stages, but for the language lessons, they might have to identify pictures of nouns. And so that's where I might use some of their materials. And I tried my best to do 34 weeks of activities in these lessons. And those are ones that I sell on Teachers Pay Teachers. And also, I like making workbooks and printables to talk about social interaction because I didn't see a lot of that out there when I was teaching. People would say, you have to teach social skills, you have to teach social skills. And they would never give us anything to teach social skills with. And so that was one of the first things I made when I started making educational products. But some of the other ones that people don't really know that much about are those file folder tasks because we made a lot of file folders back in the day, but nobody really has time to print all that out. And so I try to put it in a book where it's already done. You just cut it out, laminate it, and then you've got some easy tasks that the students can do. The number 6 thing, you got to know what materials to order. This is tricky for a lot of kids. Setting up your classroom can be challenging, and you usually want to know, okay, what are the must haves that we need in order to teach students with autism? Honestly, I know I have a color printer here, but it doesn't have to be in color, but most people do want their things in color. And you hope that the school system will give you access to a color printer, but most times they don't. So you need a printer, you need a laminator, you need Velcro or you need fake Velcro, those adhesive dots, and you need organizational supplies. These things are going to help you to make all the visual supports that you need and help you organize your data. I think we had a lot of people said data wasn't a challenge. And we don't really need a lot of textbooks in our classrooms. We need office supplies so that we can organize things. For our students, you don't want to have too much clutter. If you can, you want to use neutral colors because they could be overly stimulated. And so we have to pay attention to that for our kids. And then part of getting the room ready is really ordering the materials. And so I do have a blog post on autismclassroom.com about ordering materials for an autism classroom, and it gives you some ideas on what to order for your classroom. It used to have a bunch of pictures of what to order, and that was fantastic. And then Amazon changed some of their style, and so all of those pictures, I mean, it was pretty detailed. All of those pictures no longer, the links no longer worked, and so I'm still working on that page, but it still has some decent information. When you're working in an autism classroom, you have to figure out how creative do you want to be. Are you going to make everything? Are you going to use those visual supports and use that printer and print out everything? Or do you want somebody else to make it for you? You could crowdsource things, have people purchase things for you, like through Donors Choose or some other place where people buy things for educators. You could share things if you want to. Ask people if you can swap materials or lessons. You can look online for pre-made items as long as it's reputable, because that can get a little bit tricky. And then you can consider maybe using your own clip art or real photos to create stuff. So when you think about using visual supports, though, you can use it on your lanyard to make common classroom instructions like stop or raise your hand, telling the students if it's too loud, if they need to quiet down. You could use it in a bathroom near a classroom sink to remind them of washing their hands. You can use it in a whole group lesson. This is one of my favorite ways to use it so that you can reinforce the behaviors that you want students to do. And if they peel everything off the table, you can Velcro it under the table and just take it out when you need it and then put it back under there when you're done. If you have a visual schedule that they can manipulate throughout the day, that will be helpful too. And then, of course, you can use charts or a first then board to help hopefully have them participate and engage in what you're doing. And again, the need for visually supported concepts and visually supported communication is so strong that I have 2 entire modules of the course dedicated to that. One is for schedules and the other is visual supports. And that's in that Autism Classroom Design course. It's not open right now. I think I'm going to open it in January because it takes a lot of work to run it, because there's like coaching that goes along with it. So for number 8, you need to understand the parents' perspectives. And again, people don't tell you this. You just come in and they give you the job and they say, here's all the students. But you've got to maintain a positive relationship if you can with parents. It's getting harder and harder though. But you want to try to establish an ongoing professional communication. So their parents 24/7, they have a wealth of knowledge about their child, and then you have the instructional strategies, and so you want to combine those, right? Their knowledge, your instructional strategies. Never judge a parent on their worst day. So if they're having a really bad day, or if they're really upset, or they're having a hard time, try not to judge them, just like you wouldn't want them to judge you. Okay, let's see. Lauren has a student who has memorized his daily schedule, and it's more of a hassle to use a visual schedule and have him move the check marks over to done. Is this a typical thing? I think some kids outgrow certain types of schedules. So it may be time to move him to a different type of schedule. So because if he is reading, or if he's getting older, you can move into a type of schedule like you use, because adults use schedules too. We kind of forget we use a schedule. It's called a calendar, right? It tells us, well, for teachers, it's called a planner. It tells us what to do at what time. And so you might have to look for a different one. What age range? Or what grade? Fifth grade. Oh, okay. Doesn't read well, but he memorized the schedule. Well, so then what I would do is, because, let me come on here real quick. Because he seems to know the pictures, it sounds like, or he just knows the routine. Because he knows either the pictures or the routines, then I would give him a schedule that has the words written big and then the picture really small. Because at that point, now you're teaching him how to read the words, right? So he already knows the routine. So his goal is not really about learning the routine like somebody else who's falling on the floor and not coming over to the area. His goal right now is we're going to move him forward a little bit more. We know that reading is not his strong suit, but now we're going to teach him. Oh, thank you. We're going to teach him how to read the schedule words, because I felt like that was the best way for me to teach my students reading, like, because they would see them all the time. So that might be a spot to start with him. So let's see. Where am I? Hold on. Everybody forgot to tell you. Let's see. Oh, we're talking about parents and having a good rapport. So here are some ideas that you could do and use and remember when you're talking with parents. Maybe give them a short survey at the end of the day, or excuse me, to go home at the beginning of the year so they can tell you about their child. You want to know what their concerns are, what are they most proud of, because this is going to get you to have a little glimpse inside of what the student can do, because the parent's going to tell you some great things about their child. And if you noticed, I didn't put anything in there about let's see. Well, I did say concerns, but nothing about like what is their behavior. Like this is just for you to find out from the parents the most positive parts of the student. And then we know they're human too. So they're looking for us for answers when they bring their child to us. But sometimes we're new and we're human too. We don't always know the answers. And I think that's okay. You don't have to pretend like you know it all. You just let them know, listen, I'm not sure, but I'm going to look into it and I will get back to you. I think that will help you establish a more trusting relationship than just telling them anything they want to hear. And number 9, you need to know who's on your team. So if you're brand new, before you can get to that school, you want to know, okay, they say it takes a village. And as a teacher, you're part of that village, but who else is part of that village? It's usually a speech teacher, occupational therapist, school counselor, paraprofessional. A lot of people work in an autism class to make it work. And so for us, the classrooms that I work with a lot when I'm doing consulting, they have a lot more people than I just named off. They have crisis teachers, behavior teachers, board certified behavior analysts, RBTs, which registered behavior technicians. The administration comes into their classes a lot to help. They have crisis teams, central office staff, general education teachers sometimes. And it's always cool, like when the gym teacher or the art teacher really takes a liking to the special ed class and they come and offer extra support, or they give the kids extra support. I love seeing that. They have special teachers and substitutes because there are just a lot of people that work in an autism classroom. And if you didn't know, if you were just starting out, somebody needed to tell you, and I was hoping that I could be that person. But because we're in the middle of the school year, you guys already know this. Number 10 out of 12, you need to know how to handle behavior issues. Now, we could talk about behaviors for 2 weeks. So it's really not fair to give you one slide on it. But with that said, we know our kids have a hard time regulating their behaviors, and we have to start to kind of build our own toolkit of strategies to help the students when those tough emotions come out. And even more important, we have to be proactive. We have to structure the classroom so that we can try to prevent the behavior issues if we can. And sometimes that's really hard. And so, some of the preventative strategies I like to recommend are antecedent based interventions, things that you do way ahead of time to stop the behavior in the first place. For example, if you have a student who takes somebody's water bottle and drinks out of it every day, then the preventative antecedent based intervention would be do not have a water bottle out, right? So you hide your water bottle, put it away, cover it up, whatever you have to do. Some other preventative things would be having predictable routines. Try to make sure that you do things in the same sequence, even if it's not the same exact time, but the same sequence. Provide visual supports. Think about your procedures and try to have them be consistent. Sometimes you want to include that student choice into your lessons so that the students aren't just sitting and being consumers of the lesson, but they're actually participating and telling what they think by either pointing to something, choosing a color of a crayon, choosing between a crayon or a marker if that's a choice, um, giving their not recommendation, their feedback on an activity. If you have a picture of a happy face, a sad face, or I didn't care, asking them, how did this make you feel? And they either push happy, sad, or I didn't care. Just giving them choices so that they are becoming active participants in their life could prevent behaviors. It just depends on the student. Also, you could do a quiet corner, some type of breathing techniques for them. And some kids actually develop or need a safety plan developed, and you will know those kids on day one. And sometimes they come in and it's just like, I need all hands on deck. And so you would know. We also have to stay calm and reassure our students. And then sometimes you need a specific functional behavior assessment, and that takes a team to develop. Number 11, you need to develop transition strategies for your students. And people won't always tell you this. They just expect, well, you're an autism teacher, you have a self contained classroom, you know exactly what to do. But honestly, we don't know exactly what to do. We are figuring it out as it's going. What do they say? Like you're building the cart while it's rolling or something like that. That's what it feels like in a lot of our classrooms. So a lot of our students have difficulty with transitions, and sometimes they'll have an IEP goal or that supplementary aids that says they're going to transition from a preferred activity to a non-preferred activity. And of course, they're fine when it's playtime and when it's time for the music or a video, but as soon as it's time for math, then you might have a problem. So if you have felt in the past that, you had to tell your students clean up when it's time to clean up, that is a verbal transition, and it might work well in general ed, but it doesn't always work well for students with autism. You're going to have to build in transition strategies to help your students when it's time to transition from one activity to the other activity. And sometimes even within an activity, from one part of the lesson to the next part of the lesson. I mean, I can remember, I think it was just last month, being in a school that I was working with, and they were gluing things on to, I don't know what it was. It could, let's just say it was a pumpkin because October or November. Let's say they were gluing little squares onto the pumpkin. Well, the little girl was taking so long. Everybody else had moved on, but she could not move on. So sometimes it's just within that same activity that students are not able to transition to the next thing. But when that occurs, you can think of using things like this to help them. A visual timer, a 5-minute warning, a first then chart, a visual schedule that is different from the class schedule. You might need a visual schedule for that actual activity. And then choice boards again. So additionally, if you can add frequent breaks or do things like heavy work, and an occupational therapist can explain heavy work for you. It's disguised as a break. So you give them something heavy to carry from one place to the other, but it's giving them this sensory input that they don't even know they need. Um, and also, you could do quiet time for students if they need it. You can use noise canceling headphones. Or if you have to, really break up your day into more manageable chunks. And I think that for a lot of people, they have a long like reading period. It might be a 45-minute reading period, which is too long for most self-contained classrooms. So you may have to break that down into three different centers that focus on reading if you have three staff members. And then you just rotate the students throughout the centers. And that way it's really a 15-minute period that the student has to pay attention to that one thing. Then they go to the other place for 15 minutes, and then they go to the other place for 15 minutes. So you're still doing 45 minutes of reading, but you have broken it down into something that makes sense for your students. And number 12, you have to know that self-care is kind of equal to structure for me. I know it sounds weird, but self-care equals structure. You have got to structure your classroom in order for you to take care of your emotional, physical, physiological classroom self. Because if it's unstructured, you're going to feel it. The kids are going to show it, and it is going to wear you down. It really is. And it takes a lot to get this structure in our classrooms because you have to do things over and over and over again, oftentimes with little people who don't want to do the things you're trying to get them to do. So for our students, though, you want to be predictable, try to have routines, use some rhythms and rituals as cues. So if you like singing, use songs to get them to understand that something's finished, it's time to move to something else. You can use timers too. These things are going to increase the participation because some kids will start to pick up. So even if you got 4 out of 6 understanding that when you sing this song, it's time to do whatever we need to do, and at the beginning of the year you had 0 out of 6 that would follow, if you can get 4 of them, you're winning. But for you, of course, it's going to be helpful too, because the students are not the only ones who benefit from a planned and consistent schedule. And we know it can be thankless for us. Sometimes it feels like the paperwork is everything. And then the best way for us to stay ahead is to spend lots of time and energy up front developing the structures and the routines and the systems. And for me, I value saving educators time. Um, I talked to you about the folder task book, which again, you would just cut and I guess you put it on construction paper or something a little bit sturdy. And then I did not tell you about this time saving visuals for an autism support classroom. This book does the same thing. The things are in color. It's like colors and token boards and countdown boards, stuff that's already made. So if somebody comes in your class and says, oh, well, this student is supposed to have this visual or that visual, this book will get you started. Of course, you'd have to individualize some things for students, but this is a general book to get you started. And I value saving teachers time that I dedicated the whole website, autismclassroom.com, to helping teachers structure their classroom. All the stuff that I wish was out there when I started over 20 years ago. And then within the last, I'd say 6 years, probably in 2020, I was like, okay, I think I'll make a course about this. And it's called Step by Step Autism Classroom Design. Again, that's not open yet, but it might be open in January. If you follow the Facebook group or join our mailing list, you'll start to hear about it when the time comes. Or you can email me. Let me put in my email just in case. Support at autismclassroom.com. And that way I can let you know about it. So again, I think this might be it. I had done this training earlier. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's just more about the course and how it tries to fast track what you've learned. And oh, the stuff that's in the course if you're interested. So it talks about schedules, it talks about the environment, it talks about teaching methods. And so I love that one because it gives you curriculum ideas for an autism classroom. Like you talked about ARIS and ABLES. And I try to find almost all the curriculum options that were out there because I used to get a lot of questions about that. It also gives you ideas on how to make a lesson plan when you're getting an observation. And then the cultivating communication is about working with the team. Oh, I'm sorry. Cultivating communication is about visual supports. And then the base building is about working with a team. And I think that is it. Let me jump back on here. I believe that is it. Those are the 12 things to know before establishing your autism classroom. All the things that people don't tell you, but they really expect that you're supposed to know all of this. So please let me know if it was helpful. If it was, and if you're in our Facebook group, because I'm having the same training tomorrow, if you are in the Facebook group, can you just go in and comment that it's a real thing? If people want to come here, they can come and get this information. All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right. So I will see y'all. Oh, wait, one more thing. I am doing a workshop. I just have to figure out when. I'm going to do a workshop about elopement and students like running within the classroom or leaving the group within the classroom. And so the workshop will be a little bit different. It'll be a little bit more intense with like homework and things to do, and it'll be paid. That normally they're like I'll do a free webinar, but this one will have a charge. I mean, it might be $17 or something like that, but I'm going to try to work that out. Okay. All right. Have a great day.